Now we've got our next guest. I want to welcome to the Final Say radio show, Cherylyn Harley LeBon, who's with the National Center for Public Policy. And I want to welcome you to the show, and we're going to be discussing what I find just absolutely, I don't know how you even, there's so many words I could use to describe what Michael Bloomberg's been up to lately, but getting into this breastfeeding issue, going even back further, a week or so, attacking the sale of soda in restaurants and his words regarding gun rights. I mean, what is Michael Bloomberg thinking here?
Well, that's the question that everyone has. And as you alluded to, we sort of have been down this very deliberate path of leading us down the anti-state. First it was the first it was the tobacco, and then the no smoking. Then it was the trans fat, and then it was sort of limiting the amount of sodium that organizations could include in their food that were donating to food banks and homeless shelters. Then, of course, it was the soda pop ban, and now you have the breastfeeding issue, which essentially now Mayor Bloomberg is trying to be in line with an NGO called the World Health Organization, which, of course, encourages women to breastfeed for at least 6 months. Laudable goal. I am the mother of 2 children, and I breastfed both of my children for an extended period of time, so I am a strong proponent of breastfeeding. However, Bloomberg, in his infinite wisdom, has taken this a step further. And so now 27 out of 40 hospitals have now gone on board with what Mayor Bloomberg has proposed, and said now that if women want to have formula in the hospital, the nurses need to document a medical reason. Now, the interesting thing here is that no one has defined medical reason. We don't know how broad that is. We don't know how narrow that is. It's sort of that gray area, which happens when people tend to, on the left, come out with these mandates and give people no clear distinction on how to proceed. But in this particular incident, the hospitals have acted pretty quickly, and they are, in fact, on board with what Mayor Bloomberg has proposed. And now, after a woman has just given birth, is exhausted, everything that goes along with that, she's now going to have to negotiate with the nurses and justify why she wants to give that newborn baby formula.
I'm sorry. I was going to say maybe Michael Bloomberg ought to become a papa to everyone's children now. I mean, it's like it's absurd.
So. It is really absurd. And here's what and I've done so many interviews on this since Sunday. One host said to me, well, Mayor Bloomberg really believes that the actions he's taken during his tenure are increasing the health, improving the health of New York citizens. And in fact, he maintains that New York City residents have a 3-year longer longevity lifespan than the rest of the country. But here's the issue. With this particular breastfeeding initiative, unlike the soda pop situation, he limited how many ounces you can drink of soda in a restaurant, theater, and a couple other venues. If you felt that you did not get enough, you could simply walk across the street and go to 7-Eleven and order a big gulp. Not so in the situation here with the breastfeeding initiative, because women are truly out of options. Because the only option you have in this case is after you've given birth, and Lord knows how many hours you've been in labor, is to pack up yourself and your baby and walk across the street and buy some formula from a drugstore. That is just not realistic for someone who's just given birth. It's just not. So really what Mayor Bloomberg is doing is taking away a woman's option. I mean, she has no option except to sit there and negotiate with the nurse. And I got to tell you, these moms are just not going to be up for it. They're not going to be up for it.
Absolutely right. So, Cherylyn, this is John Rappaport. Welcome to the Final Say radio program. When my two children are teenagers now, but when we were going through the whole process of preparing for the birth of our children, I think the single best advice, no offense to my mom or any other family member, but I think the best information that we really got advice-wise was when the woman who took us through the birthing classes said to me, "You are her ombudsman. You're her advocate. She's going to be so tired and so nervous and in pain, and you have to absolutely take care of helping all the decisions, fight her battles for her, etc." And so there's a couple of problems I have with the decision the mayor has taken. First, he's not hired to be. That's not what he was hired to do. Second, he's getting, again, we have a politician playing doctor, right? This should be between a woman.
And he's clearly not a pediatrician or a neonatal specialist. And that, to me, are really the two people who need to be the bottom line decision makers on whether a mother is going to breastfeed her baby or not.
Exactly. And the third point, I think, is critical, which is many of the constituents, particularly the single mothers and those that don't have a large supporting family structure, are the ones who aren't going to have a strong advocate there on their behalf.
Absolutely.
And I think it's terrible to put those women in the position of having really having no support system. I'm all for breastfeeding, like most thinking, reasoning people. So thank you so much for taking on this issue and helping in this battle. I'm not sure we'll win, but common sense is always a worthwhile argument.
Well, the interesting thing is, though, that every woman I've seen interviewed about this, because, of course, they're just kind of going on the streets of New York and asking women with little babies, and the baby born, not one of them supports this, not one. Now, I've been criticized in various blogs in the media for my position. In fact, some people sent me some quotes and whatnot. And, I'm pretty firm on this. I think it's important for women in New York City to kind of stand up to something like this, because I just don't understand, A, where he has the authority or research to back something like this up, and B, I think he really crosses the line. And obviously he's never had a child before. I mean, I just don't like when they come up with these, cockamamie, mandates and regulations, and they have no idea how this stuff works in real practice. I mean, it takes a real commitment to breastfeed, particularly if you have other children at home. Say you have 3 children at home, and now, they're going to force you to be breastfeeding a third. I mean, it's just not, it is a time commitment. Women have to make sure they're eating enough calories so that they're producing enough milk. I'll tell you, it's a full-time job on top of taking care of the baby and feeding and changing the diaper and everything else. And if you've got other little ones at home, to say, I'm going to breastfeed this child and feed them for every feeding takes time and a real commitment. And not everybody is up for that. And you know what? And if they decide they're not up for that, it's fine. And it's fine for them to exercise that option. But Mayor Bloomberg kind of roping in these hospitals, in his latest, cockamamie scheme, I think just crosses the line.
Well, that's absolutely correct. Cherylyn Harley LeBon, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to having you down the road to discuss all the other crazy issues that will come up in the future.
Right. Thank you so much
much
for having me, and thank you to your listeners. Bye-bye now.